now at a certain level, where do you look? What do you do to kind of up your level? Because I think based on what I heard from you today is that you're always going to be up leveling. You're always going to be enhancing the mind and growing. What are you doing today to help you kind of get to wherever your next level is that you want to go to?
You know, the road to success is a curved road. And every time, which means you can't, if you think about a curved road, you can only see up to the bend of the road, right? And you and I, we can't handle knowing what's around in the world of success. We can't handle knowing what's around that corner, what we need. Otherwise, I'm thank goodness I didn't know everything I needed to know to own an auto repair shop, own a business, because I never would have started, especially with 5 of them. I never would have started. So it's good that we're only given what we can handle. I personally believe that as we grow, as we level up, as you say, I'm just getting around that corner, and what can I see? Only to the next corner. That's great. So I just need to continue to prepare myself for the level of success that I know the Lord wants me to have. And it isn't all about money. It's also about people, relationships, spreading His word and being His hands and feet, which we do that quite a bit as well. The marketplace itself is a ministry. There's so many people that need to hear the positivity of what the Lord's done in my life and how much I give Him the glory for any of the successes that I have, including my marriage, my relationship with my kids, and all the success that I've had. That's real success, is what I call the legacy. What I leave behind is 2 things, right? The seeds of Christ that I planted in you and everybody else that I know, including my wife and kids, and the memories that my family has of me when I leave. What I drove, the size of my bank accounts, how many doors I owned, that's not going to matter. None of that's going to matter. So if we keep that in perspective, everything is going to be okay. I don't lose perspective of that. But in true answer to your question, I set aside somewheres in the ballpark of $75,000 to $100,000 a year for continued education and coaching.
Hello and welcome back to another episode. We have an exciting show. We have a great story to talk about. We're going to talk about how somebody can change their life, basically hit rock bottom, had to go through a lot of rehab, found God, and found purpose in life. And it's a great story. I met this gentleman through a mastermind group, and when he was talking to me about his past, and I think when we were at a cigar lounge, even though you and I both don't smoke cigars, with a bunch of guys, I remember it. And you showed me a picture of you, and you were just at the rock bottom.
Yes, sir.
And it's amazing. Like, I follow you on Facebook, and you're so positive. I love your energy. And so we wanted to share Rob's journey and his story on how you can, turn your life around. And I'm going to get a little bit religious on this show because Rob is a very religious guy, and he's very passionate. I see him at Bible study every Friday. I see your posts on Facebook. I always pay attention, right? You see, and you really have a positive energy about you. So I'm happy to have you on the show and really dive in. I think we can talk about, your past and kind of how you changed your life. And then also now how you're having such impact on people, how you're helping people, invest in different real estate opportunities. And you also have a great story. Prior to this, you had 5 different companies and you sold to a private equity firm. So I think you have a lot of value to provide to people. So it's good that we got you here on the podcast. So thanks for joining us, Rob.
Pretty cool stuff. Thank you for having me, Beau. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for those kind words of encouragement. I'm very humbled by those. We have lived numerous lives in the last 23 years. It's crazy, man. From business ownership, really started with home ownership, business ownership, multiple business ownership, house flipping and a little bit of real estate, to multifamily investing, to being bought out. But it all starts with stumbling into a rehab, a 30-day drug rehab in 1999, with my ass in my hand because I was on the edge of death, right? I wish I could write that better for drama, but it's not written for drama. That's real world stuff, brother. I was depressed and despondent and on the verge of going to prison for a long time because of all the little petty things I had done were adding up into major stuff. So Thank God that wasn't his plan for me. He decided to have me be involved in ministry on this side of those barred walls, and I'm very, very happy about that today, quite honestly. But yeah, anyways, thanks for having me today, brother.
Yeah. So like what was the turning point? I'm always curious when I see people that have completely changed their life. And I remember seeing the picture of you. I don't know if you were in jail or just in rehab. And it was like, I couldn't believe it was you. But what was like I mean, what got you in? Was it just the addiction? I mean, or was it the family? Did you come up in a household that used drugs? What brought you to where you were? And then what was that change that happened that you hit rock bottom and then you were able to change your life?
You know, I grew up, my mom was a functioning alcoholic, to be honest with you, and I didn't know that she was. I didn't even know what that was. As an adult looking back, I get it now. She did very well for taking, as a single mom. My father wasn't involved much. They got divorced when I was 6. But she did a very good job of keeping a roof over our head, keeping clothes on our back, and I have nothing but respect for her. Hats off to her and all single moms out there. But I'll also say that because of her having to do what she had to do, as we say, to keep a roof over our head, I had very limited supervision, which is not good for a young man. I did not have a positive male influence that in my life that I accepted to be a positive, because you can't just have a positive. I had some positive men in my life that I repelled and decided was not going to be the influence that I needed. Both of those male influences that I wish I had listened to more back then are not just Facebook friends, but mentors in my life today, believe it or not, at the age of 57. But and today's my birthday, by the way. I actually turned 57 today. So
happy birthday.
Thank you, brother. To me, my belly button birthday is just another day. It's really November 22nd, 1999 that I started living again. That's my sobriety date. And for those people that are a friend of Bill W's, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Our sobriety date is the most important birthday that we have in our lives. But because I had lack of a positive male influence, or at least accepted one, had a lot of free time. My mom wasn't available, started hanging around with those kids on the railroad tracks. And we all know, your mother used to say, if you hang around with those people on the street corner, you're going to become just like them. And that is a proven fact. Whether you're hanging around with multimillionaires that are trying to be the best the Lord wants them to be, or whether you're hanging around with people that think that drinking beer every single night is acceptable, you will become just like them. Matter of fact, my book for I know your listeners and viewers don't know this yet, but I wrote a book about my journey. It's called Addicted to Life: How I Went from Homeless to Extraordinary Success and Happiness in a Short Period of Time. Chapter 7 of my book is actually titled, You Must Understand the Law of Exposure. And the law of exposure simply means that what you expose yourself to, you will become. If you expose yourself to, and I say this from the stage from time to time, if I hang around with bikers long enough, I'm going to be a biker. If I hang around with cowboys long enough, I'm going to be a cowboy. Nothing wrong with cowboys or bikers, by the way. But if I hang around with God-fearing men that are trying to be the best that they possibly can be and make themselves on their own time from the inside out, the best version of themselves that they can offer to the world, and then offer that best version of themselves to the world, that's what I'll become too. And I learned that, to answer your question, the turning point in my life, that fork in the road, was I was sitting, and I talk about this in my book, I was sitting at my new probation officer's office at an intake appointment that only by a set of circumstances only God could have coordinated did I even make it to that appointment, or I was going to do the 2 years in jail. And they hand you this intake packet that's an inch thick. And I started reading through it. And, don't you know, Beau, I was just overcome. I was overstricken with just remorse as it started to ask me about my drug history, my domestic violence history, my work history. And I knew I was sitting there with tears, and there was other people around this conference table that were also doing their intake paperwork. And I was just sitting there bawling like a baby with tears coming down my face, because I knew I was at that fork in the road and I had a decision to make. Was I going to lie like I had always lied, and probably end up failing a urinalysis 6 months, 3 months, 3 weeks later, and end up doing the 2 years? Or was I going to get naked on this application and tell the truth? Right now, the fact that I still had a warm crack pipe in my pocket, and I made the decision, and this is the name of chapter 1 of my book, You Got to Be Done. I told myself right there and then I was done treating my wife and putting her through the things that she was going through, treating my parents, treating my kids, treating my ex-wife, treating myself. And I was done with that lifestyle. And I got naked on that application. And I went into her office, and she takes the application and goes into her office and reads it for a little bit. She comes back, and she sternly invited me into her office. I'll never forget this, Beau. She says, well, I guess we don't need to do a drug test, do we? Because I was honest and said I had used within the last 24 hours, quite frankly. And she said, you look like walking death. I'm not here to play games. Tell me if you're serious or not. And if you're serious, I'll get you the help. But if you're not, let's just call it a day. And I told her, I am done.
Wow. So that from that day forward, you started obviously getting on the track, and so you got into was it the auto repair business, the auto body business?
It was actually bumper to bumper, all makes, all models, underhood, undercarriage, auto repair. And that's one of the things that I had worked with my dad as a kid. He did it all. He did metal fabrication. I learned how to weld. I'm a certified welder, MIG welder. I built trailers. I did concession trailers for the carnival, which was one of the things he did. Because he had carnival rides at one point in his career. So I did all that stuff, but I decided to offshoot just auto repair, and started working for a guy right out of rehab, actually not long out of rehab. And little did I know that guy was training me by his example to run a profitable, ethical business, an auto repair shop in this case. So, he was the last employer I ever had. I worked for him for 5 years. He taught me by example how to do what he did. And when a business became available, I jumped on it, and all that. And that's kind of pause there for just a moment, because I do want to be perfectly clear. My book is not about how to become a non-using drug addict, because that same analogy, you got to be done, pertains to people that are living in what I call a life of complacency, right? Whether they've had some success, and I know you've experienced it because you're a successful guy. It gives us the opportunity to get complacent. A friend of mine used to say, success breeds complacency. And it does, because in the eyes of the world, a superstar is a superstar because he's just a few notches above everybody else. But we're all called to do something in this world that only I can do, only you can do, right? I can't do what you can do. You can't do what I can do. And I personally believe that God has a mission for each of us. And if we don't continue to educate ourselves and continue to personal development, and like I talked about a moment ago, changing from the inside out, we're not going to be ready for when that opportunity comes along. And that, what a shame that would be, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I definitely have the itch where don't like to be average. I mean, like for me, at least, I want to constantly improve, and I'm always studying. I feel like I'm in this, and you're a little bit more established than I am. So you have a little bit different path, right? I'm 45, you're 50, turning 57 today.
57.
Right. And so, I deal with that. I mean, I totally agree that we have to surround ourselves with the right people, because we're going to absorb whatever is around us. So if you want to become successful, you have to hang out with successful people. I totally agree with that. I think that you have to, and your book, it's a great, thank you for pointing that out, because a lot of people, they might not be addicted to something, but they might be just living that life where they're so unhappy because they're not doing what their real calling is. And I know a lot of people like myself, I'm really driven. And so we often get frustrated because we're really driven just to do better. And so it's kind of interesting to see your story, like when you finally came clean with the reality of where you were with the addictions you had in life, and then you basically cold turkeyed at that point, and you went and worked in the auto business. You ended up buying a business, and you basically became addicted to the new life. I mean, in a sense, addiction isn't necessarily, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but addiction isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as you're addicted to the right things. Is that true? Would you agree? Like maybe
I do agree.
You turned your addiction into positive passion, which enabled you to become an entrepreneur and to be able to give back in a positive way to the world. So it's not that addiction is bad. I think addiction in the right direction could be possibly good. Like if you to become a world champion athlete, whether it's mixed martial arts, basketball, whatever, those people are the ones that are typically shooting 500 free throws, at 7 a.m. before people are up. Right. So I wanted to get kind of your take on addiction, if you agreed with that, saying that most successful people are addicted to something. The key is to be addicted to the right things in life.
No, and it's funny you say that, because when I got sober, I didn't realize it at the time. I look back now, and I'll share the story with you, but I had switched addictions. I was no longer addicted to drugs and alcohol, but I had transferred that to food and cigarettes. And at about 2 years sober, I was smoking, believe it or not, 4 packs of cigarettes a day. And when I got sober, I needed to gain 30 pounds. I gained 100 pounds. And I look like a snake that swallowed a mouse when I'm that heavy. So I literally look like I was a pregnant man smoking 4 packs of cigarettes a day. And I went to, so yes, you're not really going back to what you said a moment ago, you're not really going to lose addictions. You're going to switch addictions. And if you take that negative energy and point it in the positive direction, you're unstoppable. I see it over and over and over again with people that have dabbled in drugs and alcohol in the past, maybe triggered some addictive behaviors. And now they've turned that, they've pivoted, and have got that going in the right direction. And they're very, very successful at whatever it is that they choose to do. The challenge that we have, and I know you probably relate to this, is staying in balance, right? I believe in a full balanced life. My walk with God being the most important thing, my health being the next thing, my relationships being the next thing, my personal development being the next thing, my wealth being the next thing, and my contribution back to society being the next thing, in that order. But in full transparency, I don't think anybody gets to the next level. The Kobe Bryants of this world, you use basketball as an analogy, and all those workouts that he would do above and beyond what other people were doing. I don't think you get there without being a little out of balance in the beginning. I really believe that you will be out of balance. The trick is, as you grow, to pivot and get in balance, right? Making sure that I'm spending time with the Lord, make sure that I'm spending time at the gym, spending time with my wife, my kids, my teammates, the people in the marketplace, as far as relationships goes. All of that is just a matter of balance. Although I will say, if anybody tells you they've been balanced their whole career and they're ultra successful, I would probably challenge them on that, because there are times when you're out of balance.
Thank you. I agree with you 100%. And I wanted to get your take on it. And yeah, so anyways, I'm going to kind of dive back into your story. So anyways, you bought this auto repair business, then you started opening additional locations as you became more and more successful. At some point, you said, okay, it may be a good time. A private equity firm came in and bought you, and you got a nice exit.
Yes.
Okay. And that was about how long ago?
2021. So we owned stores for 18 years.
2021. So during that time, when did you catch the real estate investing bug? When did you start really diving into real estate?
Hi, this is Beau, host of the Investor Financing Podcast. Are you a real estate investor with properties and you're trying to figure out how to refinance or grow your existing real estate business? Need some clarity and a game plan for moving forward? I'm offering a free strategy call where we dive deep on your real estate investing goals. I'll help you come up with a strategic finance plan that will help you get to where you want to go. Whether you've got a portfolio of 30 properties or you're starting out with your first property, I have a framework that has helped many investors grow. If you're interested, Book a call below in the Calendly link.
You know, we in the world of business ownership, you've probably heard the term before. We call it stacking cash. When your business is doing well, you're stacking cash. And we wanted to be good stewards of God's money, and we knew that we needed to get some education on how to properly invest. I had always been a fan of real estate. I purchased a home study course called How to Buy Your First Investment Property or a Personal Residence with No Money Down by Carlton Sheets. And I had listened to that till the words faded off of those cassette tapes. I had to buy another one that was CDs. but I never did buy a house, no money down, because I was pulling up on a motorized skateboard with a seat because I didn't have a license and I still didn't have any teeth in my face. And I was driving up to FSBOs, or for sale by owners, seeing if I could buy their house. I never did buy a house, but I learned some creative finance techniques that helped me buy my first 3 auto repair shops, no money down. And then when we started stacking cash in my business, I knew that was the route that I wanted to go. So I signed up for Robert Kiyosaki's Wealth Intelligence Academy back in the day is what it was called, and started flipping houses, doing wholesaling.
Very cool. And then over time, like many investors, you said, wait, there's got to be a better way. And then you got into multifamily, and then you got into syndications, and kind of talk to us about at what point. I still think you're flipping houses right now with your son and some family members. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Are you guys mostly flipping in the San Diego area?
You know, two things I'll tell you about that. I'm not a house flipper anymore. It's not really the greatest use of my time, but there are people in my life that is a great use of their time. So I'm mentoring them. I'm a team member with them. One of them is my son, who actually, when I sold my auto repair shops, he was not in a position to buy just yet, wasn't ready. So he stayed on as an employee of the auto repair shop buyer of mine, the private equity firm. And he has been looking to flip homes. So we're doing that in San Diego. We did 2 together where I found it and funded it and helped him fix it. And we flipped it together. And now I have a deal with him where I'll partner with him, but he's going to find the deal. So that's what we're waiting on right now is for him. He's been kicking a lot of tires, and I do the final underwriting review. And I'm doing that same thing in Las Vegas with a couple of mentees. I guess I mentor them. We're partnered on, and one of them's a realtor, one of them's the wholesaler, and we're partnered as a team, and we're flipping some homes over there. But my involvement time-wise is very limited on that. I'm really just kind of an overseer and mentor, and I help them get the financing together. My main thing really nowadays, as you said, we graduated into multifamily. Eventually, we did some joint ventures with some friends where 3 of us pitched money together, bought a 40-plex, and a few of us pitched money together, bought a 105-plex. And then I realized the smarter way to go to use less funds on each deal is going to be to syndicate. So we got education from RE mentor Dave Lindahl in 2009. And, it only took me 10 years to become an overnight success in that stuff. I always joke about that because we're certainly not overnight successes, but we do a lot of that right now. We're currently in escrow on 120 units in Arlington, Texas. That ought to close in July, and 233 units in Las Vegas, Nevada, not far from you and me. So, we just closed on 75 doors in Baldwin, Georgia with some partners as well back in April. So we're very active in that, and I'm very much involved in not just as a GP or an LP, but as a key principal on the loan as far as the main coordinator of the deals.
Very cool. So besides multifamily, are there any asset classes that you're acquiring, any self-storage or anything like that?
I'm not doing self-storage. I am an LP on some friends' deals that do self-storage because I know there's great operators and the returns are fantastic. I do some triple net investing, some single tenant triple net. I have some investments in Las Vegas as well. So I do like other categories. I'm very picky. I'm just kind of always lean towards the multifamily because it's treated me so well.
What did you like about the multifamily in Las Vegas? What attracted you to the market here? Obviously, you live here the majority of your time, and also part-time in San Diego. But I'm really pro Las Vegas, and I'm just constantly reading about, first of all, they're just announced they might get NBA now, do a $10 billion development. They're going to have a high-speed train from LA to Las Vegas. I think, I've always believed this, that Las Vegas is going to become just an unbelievable place, which I think it already is. Most people that live here and don't hang out on the Strip, they understand there's a lot to do, a lot of fun, a lot of places to eat. But it was a recent acquisition in Las Vegas. I'm interested on why you think Las Vegas, and then two, the second part of the question is, there's a lot of turmoil right now going on with the economy. What opportunities do you think are around the corner? How are you analyzing deals now versus, a year and a half, 3 years ago? And what do you think what does your crystal ball say that we should be looking for over the next year or two?
Well, the opportunity to be optimistic when underwriting deals is long gone, right? So, and I've always been, quote unquote, a deal killer, because students would come to me, and when I say students, I mean fellow students that have attended the same school that I went to, that I'm very well known for partnering with people in that education world. They'll come to me with deals, and I kill the deal. A lot of the times it turns into a mentoring session, Beau, where I teach them why it's not a deal, quite honestly. I'm not doing much different other than just making sure that I'm even more conservative than I used to be. I leave a lot of room in the vacancy and the economic vacancy to make sure that no matter what happens with this property, I guess the whole idea is to try to insulate ourselves against risk as best as we possibly can. We all know that, right? So I just build more and more walls. I'm very pessimistic about my exit cap rate. I'm very pessimistic about what my vacancy rate and economic vacancy and uncollectibles is going to be. I'm very pessimistic about what the interest rates are going to be for my buyer when I go to sell. And if all of those levers are favored towards me as I stress test a deal, if any 2 or 3 of those go sideways, I'm still profitable. Maybe not at the level that I thought I was going to be when I underwrote the deal, if everything went reasonably well, but still profitable. That's really the key in today's market.
Yeah, that makes sense. So talk about Las Vegas. It sounds like you have some triple net leased properties here. You have some this larger multifamily. What was the play, or what was the thought process on this Vegas deal? Why did you like it, and why did you acquire it?
Well, truth be told, this Vegas property brings me back to my roots a little bit because of the homelessness factor. I don't know if you've heard of Veterans Village, also called Shared. It's called Shares now, which is an acronym because somebody sued them for calling it Veterans Village because there wasn't all veterans, believe it or not. But they are basically offering housing to the less fortunate, people that are coming off the streets, coming out of jail, coming out of prison, and straight off the streets. And, one thing that Las Vegas, unlike a lot of other communities around the country, Beau, has in their favor, is they've got programs to get people off the streets. If people don't want to be homeless in Vegas, they won't be. But there's one thing lacking, and that is willing landlords to take on their programs. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the county of Clark County, they will pay rent premiums. They'll pay sign-on bonuses when you bring tenants in. They'll do double security deposits. They'll make sure that your asset does not get destroyed, and they give each individual person tenant a caseworker. And this is not Section 8, because for those people that have Section 8 or have utilized Section 8, they understand that the caseworker is almost useless in a lot of cases where they don't really help when the tenant is not staying in the lane that they're supposed to. These programs do that with 2 caseworkers. They allow us to be profitable, maintain a good asset, and offer housing for people that otherwise would not have housing. And I got to tell you, that is a pet project for me and my partners who also have similar backgrounds as me. So not only will this property, it's 233 doors, it's 11 parcels. It's not just one huge apartment complex. it's 111 on one street, it's 24 and 48 on another street. They're all within a small radius of each other, but it's going to allow us to offer numerous different programs and as well as what's also known as transitional living, sober living, with 42 of those doors, 2 of those buildings. So we are very, very excited about this project, not only because of the profitability, but also because of the audience that we'll be catering to.
So that's more of a, sounds like it's you acquire that, but you have to do a little bit of value add. It wasn't running the way it should be running.
Yeah, this one, he's a lot more vacant than he should. He has the wrong tenants in there that are really not paying what should be paid. So it is a value play, 100%. Yes.
And so on something like that, do you have somebody that's driving the bus on that, or are you driving the bus on this deal?
No, we use a third, like most syndicators, we're going to use a third party property, even though it is my backyard. We have a third party property manager. We will do construction for a team member of mine, not me personally, will do the oversight construction. That's his wheelhouse, or construction oversight, excuse me, for the renovations. Most of the stuff most of these units have been already brought up to what we call premium. We've got classic, premium, and platinum. These are already been gone through. They are older, 60s and 70s. A couple of them are 50s, but they've been gone through very, very well from the studs out. But the exteriors, the roofs are at their end of useful life. The pools need to be redone. The exterior sidewalks. So there's a lot. We're going to inject, I think the number's somewhere just north of $2.3 million in the exteriors, and probably about 800 on the interiors.
Okay, so it's a good push, a good value add property, but it sounds exciting with all the things that are going on in Las Vegas. And also, it's not just about the money on this project. It's about helping society, which is like, it's really like helping, knocking 2 birds with 1 stone, right? Or whatever that's saying.
It checks a lot of the boxes.
Yeah. So that's also, it's a good play for all. It's a win-win. And we don't see a lot of those going around with syndicators. Most of the time, it just, one, is it going to make me 3x multiplier, right? Like, and so this is a different type of successful project, which actually has a societal component to it, which is important, right? Because it's not always all about making money. It's also about helping society. And I see that's another good point. Like with you, you probably don't need to work that hard anymore because you have holdings, and you give back a lot to the younger people that are trying to get in real estate investing. What advice, if somebody's watching this right now and going, yeah, I'd love to, get where Rob's at, and, they just feel kind of lost, like they don't even, what's your advice as you're mentoring like these younger generation, including your son, right? Like people are looking to you for some guidance, and like, it can be overwhelming for people that are getting started. Like, how do I ever become a Rob? How do I even get close to becoming a Rob and, get some of this financial freedom? Where do you have them start? What would be your guidance, or a couple of things you might say, hey, this is the way to do it? And I think a lot of it's going to come down, as many people don't want to hear this. There's no like secret recipe. It's really doing the work and being extremely passionate about it, right? That's going to help them.
Absolutely.
Kind of, what's your take on like today, if you had to go back and you were starting with next to nothing, maybe a little bit of skills, how would you rebuild the empire?
I would probably start with, and I don't know if I would start this way because of the additional education that I have now, but going back to your original question, people come to me and my first recommendation is we need to get education, right? So, and there's a lot of free stuff available. You do have to be careful of free, but you don't even need to make a huge investment, but you do need to make a commitment, because it's easy to talk yourself out of it. The biggest challenge, I know you can relate to this, biggest challenge most people are going to have in the beginning is what's going on between their ears, right? Them talking themselves out of the fact that A, they're worthy, and B, that they can do it, right? And then I send everybody that asks me, generally are within an hour, usually a whole lot less, of their local real estate investment club. Nowadays we have meetups. So there's a lot of those going around. You pick a category and pick a lane that you want to be in, and focus all your energies on getting that education networking. A lot of people don't realize that the local real estate investment association, there's contractors, there's realtors that work with real estate investors, there's wholesalers, there's construction guys that'll do your rehab, there's Home Depots there to give you discounts on the materials. Everything is there. So number one, find a good one that's not a pitch fest, that flies somebody in and educates you every month. Number two is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We want to start stacking some books, right? So the basics, get your mind, start expanding your mind. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a very, very good read. Just kind of, a lot of people attribute the beginning of their success to the Purple Pill, which is the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the Robert Kiyosaki series. And then the third one is, honestly would be focused on wholesaling. Wholesaling is a way without a whole lot of money that people can start stacking 10, 20, 30, 40 grand per transaction or more. I've done some, and you probably have too, man. I've done some $80,000, $120,000 wholesale deals where I still left the other people twice that meat on the bone because I did the legwork and found the deals and flipped the paper to them. And that's really all it is. But the initial foundation of that is going to the RIA and finding 5 people that'll buy houses cash, right? So you got your buyers list, and then doing your marketing and putting out your bandit signs and having those leads come to you, right? So that's what I encourage. And then you're stacking cash and can invest. And then eventually, that's where I started. Eventually, I started doing flips. And then eventually those were making enough money where I was investing in larger stuff like 4plexes and 12plexes and 6plexes. And it's a game of Monopoly. Go play Monopoly a few times and get reminded what that's all about. You're going around the board and you're just collecting a couple $100 when you pass go. And then eventually you got this little teeny weeny house. And next thing you know, you got four of those houses. And the next thing you know, you're trading those up for hotels. And next thing you know, you got 20 hotels, right? That's real life stuff. Go play Monopoly. That's what I would recommend.
I love that. Now, what are you doing today to sharpen the tools? What do you do today? What if you're doing any masterminds or retreats or any books that you've been, I think you're constantly evolving. Over the last 40 minutes we've been discussing, I think you are a learner, right? You open up books, you study. Obviously, you study the Bible too. Now, at a certain level, where do you look? What do you do to kind of up your level? Because I think based on what I heard from you today is that you're always going to be up leveling. You're always going to be enhancing the mind and growing. What are you doing today to help you kind of get to wherever your next level is that you want to go to?
The road to success is a curved road. And every time, which means you can't, if you think about a curved road, you can only see up to the bend of the road, right? And you and I, we can't handle knowing what's around in the world of success. We can't handle knowing what's around that corner, what we need. Otherwise, I'm thank goodness I didn't know everything I needed to know to own an auto repair shop, own a business, because I never would have started, especially with 5 of them. I never would have started. So it's good that we're only given what we can handle. I personally believe that as we grow, as we level up, as you say, I'm just getting around that corner. And what can I see? Only to the next corner. That's great. So I just need to continue to prepare myself for the level of success that I know the Lord wants me to have. And it isn't all about money. It's also about people, relationships, spreading his word and being his hands and feet, which we do that quite a bit as well. The marketplace itself is a ministry. There's so many people that need to hear the positivity of what the Lord's done in my life and how much I give him the glory for any of the successes that I have, including my marriage, my relationship with my kids, and all the success that I've had. That's real success, is what I call the legacy. What I leave behind is 2 things, right? The seeds of Christ that I planted in you and everybody else that I know, including my wife and kids, and the memories that my family has of me when I leave. What I drove, the size of my bank accounts, how many doors I owned, that's not going to matter. None of that's going to matter. So if we keep that in perspective, everything is going to be okay. I don't lose perspective of that. But in true answer to your question, I set aside somewheres in the ballpark of $75,000 to $100,000 a year for continued education and coaching.
There you go. I think that is a very important topic that most successful entrepreneurs reinvest heavily back into their business. Okay.
Absolutely.
It's you should be allocating whatever you're making now, or if you're not making anything, you're going to go for more of the more inexpensive educational programs. But as you grow, I know a lot of people that have coaches, personal development coaches, business coaches, real estate mentors. I dump so much money back into me now. And sometimes I was thinking about what I was spending this year in coaching I just joined another group. It was $6,000. And it stacks up, and I go, you know what? There's no better investment to invest in this real estate in between your ears. And anyways,
100%.
this has been a great conversation, and I look forward to our workout here in Las Vegas and some food. Where can people find your book and find out more about you?
Well, two things I'll talk about. One of them is my website is robrowsell.com. That's ROBROWSELL.com. And one other thing, I just backtracking a hair. I do have 4 people. I had enough people asking me, how do I get going in what you do? I did develop a real estate study guide that I used to use for one-on-one coaching when I used to do one-on-one coaching that I just make available for free now. So if you go to my website, you can download my real estate study guide for free. And that's where you get a hold of me. And I also, 2 things I'll talk about. One of them is that final pillar that I talked about contribution and giving back. My wife and I take 100 people 3 times a year down to Mexico, and we build 20 people. Each 20 people build one house in 2 days. And our next trip is in October of this year, October 26th through the 29th. I would love for any of your listeners. There's only one rule. You can't be above a number 3 on the crazy scale, or you can't come. If you're a 4, you're not allowed. No, I'm just kidding, man. But anyways, so we have a lot of fun. We go down with the hands and feet of Christ, and we build houses, and the people, the recipients of these homes build the houses with us right alongside. Even their 5-year-old kids are painting walls, and it is just an amazing, amazing experience. At the end, we get all done. They don't know this house is going to be furnished. They think it's going to be a 16 by 20 box. We take them to Costco and distract them and go buy groceries. And meanwhile, we pull out of the truck, the box truck, the kitchen table and the bunk bed and the regular bed and all the fixings. So when they come back with the groceries, we do a key ceremony. We send the key around the circle of all the volunteers. Everybody gets to say a little kind word of encouragement. And then they walk in the house for the first time as homeowners. And and we give them a few minutes of privacy. And the windows are open because it's hot. And you literally will hear them and tears of joys, unbelievable tears of joy. And then here's the custom is we give them after, can you hold on a second? And we give them about 5 minutes, and then we knock on the door, Beau, and we are, all of us, all 20 of us are their first guests in the home. It is an amazing, amazing life-changing experience, man. So,
wow, that's so amazing. That is, I'd love to do something like that at some point here, because I think, you get more joy out of giving to people and helping people that actually need it, right? And I could feel when you were telling me that story, I was like getting teary-eyed because anyways, my wife is born in Mexico. I have family in Mexico, and I remember last time I was visiting my family in Mexico, and I was leaving, and I was at the airport, and I was talking to this young kid that worked at the airport, and he was just talking about like he had lived in America for a while, but he had to move back because his mom was being abused by her husband. And he was telling me the story, and he was just telling me that there's really, the opportunities there are very limited. And I see that when I'm there, because when I go to Mexico, I'm usually the only Caucasian person in the city where my wife's from.
I see.
And so, it's nice that you do that. And especially because I have such a big family in Mexico now. It was just heartwarming to hear the story. And we hear these things and we just kind of let them go by us. But if you actually I was listening to what you're saying, I was seriously oh, I hope my eyes aren't watering. I've been, it's true. It's like, God, like you just stop and think about how amazing that is for somebody. Cause we live in a bubble. Most of us that are watching this right now, even if we're lower middle class in the United States of America, we have it so much better. It's so much more opportunity than so many other countries. And I think people need to get a reality check, and other people should be doing what you're doing to give back to people that deserve it and good family oriented people of Mexico. So
Amen.
anyways,
Amen.
I love that, man. I love that you do that. And
Awesome.
Thank you for joining us on the show. I think there's so many nuggets dropped here, guys. And if you're out there, go visit Rob's website, get a copy of his book and really just be, when I see Rob on Facebook, I always see this big smile. He's always positive, and I'm sure he has bad days like we all do. We're all human, but at the end of the day, it's about, being positive and letting that positivity, roll out onto people around you. And Rob's one of those guys that you're around him and you get excited and motivated. So thanks, Rob, for being you.
Thanks for having me, Beau. Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you. And we'll see everybody on the next episode. Hey guys, Beau Eckstein here. If you enjoyed what you saw, please subscribe to this channel. We talk all things financing. I've been in the lending industry for over 20 years, and I'm happy to answer your questions and provide great content.